Okay. Okay. I've done fighting. Let's go here. Back. Okay. Now how to share it. Okay. Let's go and see. I have no idea how the thing works. I have no idea. Okay, I'm live. Okay. How to share this? Oh, nice. Okay, maybe someone can hear me already. New dashboard, press chat. That is just crazy. Okay. To make it public. Okay. Okay. Some people are still... Oh, let me update Meetup. Okay, how to edit? I cannot edit it. Oh, I can. Meanwhile, please indicate in the chat or in the comment if you speak Russian and English. If now I'm going to speak English, I'll switch to Russian. Why everything? No. The group is so goddamn complicated. How to edit this thing? Just crazy. Okay, I'm giving up. I put the comment. Comment is here. That's it. I'm not going to update here anything. Let's see how many people. 6. Okay, so some of the people are moving to the new place, at least 3. Rush. Okay. So far, at least everyone in chat is speaking Russian. But we have 5 people watching, 2 people in chat. Please do say something in the chat. Say something, please. I don't want by accident to switch to Russian language, while some of you might still be speaking only English. Plus, there is a thing, many of my Twitter followers English speakers, so I probably will record still in English. It makes sense. Okay, this is crazy. I spent like tons of time to setting up everything here. Hi. Okay, so we definitely have English. Perfect. So we'll still in English. Now, I spent tons of time to setting up the things, and turns out almost all the software either depends. For me, it's like afternoon, so it's afternoon Saturday, yes. Not Saturday night. Okay, let me start with the agenda for this event. I will tell you what we're going to speak about, in which order. But yeah, before, just a minute of complaining. Software is horrible. I used to use Google Plus for such thing. There was a time in the past when Google Plus has this nice, amazing feature, live events, where you can just stream from your browser. It was nice. It was amazing. Effectively, the software that I'm using right now is Stage 10. It's horrible thing that more or less working. It has only ability to stream to the default live stream. That's why we had to switch from previous channel to the new one. And in order to enable capability to stream wherever you want, they asking like several $100s per month. So just no. And I already had to pay them just to enable some of the features that they do need. And it's working in the browser window. Now, before we'll proceed, Can you guys let me know if the quality of the video actually reasonable? Can you see what is happening on my screen or not? Because if not, it's going to be really challenging to proceed. So can you see? Let me open the presentation. Yeah, have just a presentation. Let me know if you can see and read what on my screen. Meanwhile, agenda, while waiting answers in the chat. So what we're going to speak about, I will briefly introduce myself, and then I will describe idea behind the project that we're going to talk about. There was several projects, and before we're going to jump in, let me know if any of you guys have used before a Jupyter Lab. Because obviously all of our projects are around Jupyter Lab. You still can participate if you want, but if you have not worked with this project, I believe your drive, your enthusiasm to work on it will be slightly lower than if you're active user. So yeah, have you used it? And also maybe some of you have watched my talk on Cloud Next. If no, I'm going to briefly go through the talk just to describe you idea behind the project. So that would be the first part of today. As soon as this is done, we will overview repositories, and I will give you some live example of how everything work and fit together. And then we can move to high-level code overview. Finally, I will give you a good starting points of which bug, function, if you want to start participating, you can take. And last but not least, question and answers. All the way I will be checking this chat, this small chat over here on the screen to see if you have any questions. Feel free to interrupt me at any possible point. So my goal here is to anyone who interested in participating in the project to actually get information that is enough to kick the tires and start going and start submitting pull requests and taking the tasks. Okay. Now we're going to start with the description of the idea. And since there was no answers, I assume that either everyone using Jupyter Lab or no one, and no one wants to confess. It's okay. Anyway, it's okay. Let me, time to time, I also want to check how many people there. 10. Okay, 10 people. Several in the chat. Well, let's start with presentation. So this is a talk that I gave Cloud Next. Cloud Next is a huge event that we do. Oh yeah, briefly about myself. I forgot to introduce myself because I don't know if you guys know me from Twitter, from I don't know from where. But my name is Slava, full name Vyacheslav, but I know that for some of the people it's hard to pronounce. Short name Slava, good enough. I'm senior tech lead and manager in Google Cloud AI group, managing several reasonably medium-sized team, I would say. We develop many things. Among one of the products that we just delivered is Notebook, AI platform notebooks. So effectively, it's a nice service that allows you to create notebook instances with Jupyter Lab and getting access to Jupyter Lab with one click. This is just an example. I already have a tab open, so effectively it gives you things like this. Okay, now back to the talk. So this is effectively a talk that I gave in Cloud Next. It's publicly available information, the public domain. Maybe some of you already seen this talk. I will walk only from the part that matter for the sake of our project. Okay, I'm opening full screen. Time to time, shining for some reason do not share this particular part of the screen. And looks like I don't have access in this way to the chat. Give me a second. How can I do this in another way? Presenter view. Okay, this is slightly better, slightly. I don't need this part. Yeah. That is slightly better. I can see chat and I can see the presenter view. Okay, so if you've been using notebooks in your company, your company probably already have tons of the useful notebooks. I do like to give this example. Let's say you have a researcher who producing a Jupyter notebook, and the Jupyter notebook is showing some useful information with maybe some analytics dashboard. I don't know. Let's say you're working in a car industry and you have a notebook that producing results, sales results, something like that. Now, that notebook already useful by itself. You can take this notebook and show it to maybe analytics department. They can see what's going on there. They can read data. So this is fairly self-contained notebook. But the thing is, usually Eng department is one department, business analytics is completely another department. They not communicating well between each other. And in order to give something from one department to another department, you need to release even internal product. You need to do a small release, you need to support it, you need to do a lot of stuff. And this means that whatever you want, whatever you have, needs to be production-ready quality, or whatever you define as production-ready quality. I know that for internal tooling, time to time, quality can be lower, that is normal, but still, it should pass some particular requirements. These requirements usually define how production-ready code looks like in your company. And what I've seen in many years, especially on the big enterprise customers, is that if you have a notebook and you want to release it in any way, like even if you have useful analytics that you've gathered in your notebook, you still need to redo all the work just to plug in your source code with the tooling that your company has. Like maybe you have a DevOps or another team that has particular dashboard, and you need to include your notebook effectively in that particular dashboard, so then they can rerun your source code daily and show this analytics to the analytics department. So effectively, this usually can take weeks, if not months. This creates several problems. If you need weeks just to make your notebook production ready, so you can put it in the hands of the customers, there are many notebooks that are useful, but will never reach the customer. That is problem number one. Let me check if there is anything in comment. Okay, no comments in chat. Okay, so this is first problem. Second problem, apart from the fact that some of the notebook never reach the production state at all, you effectively have high time to do so. Now, what we think, the idea that some of your notebooks can be used in production as is. Like there is a small subset of notebooks, not all of them, that can technically already self-contained. They have a well-structured code. They're showing results in a particular way. Like again, let's say your notebook has a particular analytics and show prediction of sales, or some predictions in a nice graph. And the notebook is simple. It can be executed from top to bottom. Everything working there. So you have a fairly reasonably stable notebook that can be effectively used in production part. Now, the biggest problem that there is no tooling around notebooks. Even if you have this well-defined notebook that is working, that is reasonably stable, today it's impossible to cover it with functional tests. Today it's impossible to plug it in a continuous integration system that would be rerunning this notebook on a daily basis. So all this is not possible today. Therefore, we're still here, where we do want to be here. I'm not saying that you can take any notebooks and run it in production. This is also a dream that is not reachable, and it's not actually needed. Many of notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, use Scratchpad, and this is okay. Like this is normal. Similar actually with any other fields or languages. I have a Python code, and probably 90% of Python code sitting on my local laptop. I never will commit it anywhere. I never will push it anywhere. It's just my personal scripts. I'm using them for some of the tasks that I'm working on. Now, I will skip some part that's less relevant. Let's go directly here. So there are several principles. If you're following these principles, you effectively can close the gap between notebooks and production state. And this is where our open source initiative is actually trying, what our open source product is trying to tackle. So there are several principles. First of all, probably the main one, and everyone else is derived from here. If you're using Jupyter Notebook, you need to follow best established developer practices. Like cover code with tests, have CI, have CD, have reproducible code, so on, so on. So everyone else, all other principles actually derivative from here. Second part is version control of your notebook. And if any of you, let me check if anyone's still here, maybe already people watching, okay. Now, as soon as I'm saying virtual control in notebook, people usually start screaming, I have tried to put my notebook in Git system in the past, and this is like nightmare. This is crazy. Like you cannot diff notebook, you cannot do a lot of stuff. You can, but if you're going to diff notebook, you'll see that it's done with XML. And yes, that is nightmare, but there are tooling that we will show that actually helps you to solve particularly this problem. The notebook should be reproducible. This we will discuss what does it mean, but effectively, in really simple terms, it means that you should be able to know in which environment your notebook is working, and then you should be able to run your notebook cell by cell from top to bottom, and it should just work. Continuous integration. Put your notebook in some type of tests, cover it with tests, and any commits to the notebook should be tested the same way as any other source code. Notebook should be parameterizable. If the notebook is not dynamic, if you cannot override any variables in your CI system, it's really hard to test them. Like let's say you have a notebook that executing a training that takes 1 week. Obviously, you cannot do the full training each time when someone pushes changes to that notebook. You cannot do the full training, but if you have parameterization, you can try and, for instance, start the training on really small amount of data that finishes in a small amount of time. Effectively this. Now, continuous deployment means that if your notebook passes all the tests, why not to actually execute a full training that takes a week? Sure. But if it's give you a green light, why not to execute it, have a new model, and deploy it to production? After this initial principle release, we already have 2 more. Effectively, all of them on a GitHub repository. You can submit pull requests. We're constantly working with the customers. One participant already submitted principle number 7. And we're actually communicating now with people who want to add their principle number 8. So we're effectively gathering from different researchers principles and trying to combine them together. I'm not going to go right now about these two more. You can just go on the GitHub and see at least number 7. On top of this, there are products. I will just walk around. This is the products that we're going to touch. I was going to touch in the talk, but since we're only partly covering this talk, it doesn't matter. Okay, on top of this, all 6, there is like P0. P0 is priority 0 that we're not putting here, but it's actually the main part. If you don't have it, you can forget about anything else. It's like ability to use Jupyter notebooks. And in order to solve this main problem, the simplicity of use Jupyter notebooks, so anyone can use it. This is one of the reasons why our service exists. For notebooks that I already shown to you, it solves precisely that problem, simplicity to start using notebooks, so you don't need DevOps or you don't need people who knows how to set up VM, how to plumber and set up CUDA stack, correctly set up everything for GPU. And yeah, there are many problems. I can speak for a long time why this service exists. But overall, it's just to give you a simple way to use notebooks. I'm not going to show this demo video, it's just a demo. Now, let's dive for the first principles. We need to discuss 3. In order to understand what we're doing in our open source project, we just need to cover first 3. Just 1 second. Oh, I need to change posture that I'm sitting on because I start slightly, my back start hurting. Okay. Principle number 1, establish software development practices. Let's see if chat have any questions. No questions. Perfect. So this is really quick and really simple. Imagine you're an Android developer, and you're coming to your boss, like your boss asking something, like what the best developer and dev principles that you are using at work. Well, imagine this is an interview, right? And now imagine that someone, okay, not you, but this imagined artificial Android developer saying, oh, I'm an Android developer. I don't have any principle. They don't use any best practice. Why should I? Like, best practices there about generic developers, not about me. I'm an Android developer. I don't have any best practices. I mean, your boss probably would be something like, "Oh, you're fired," right? Or like, "We will call you," or I don't know. But definitely, this such imagination dialogue even sounds funny. Now, for some reason, if people speak about notebooks, that is absolutely tolerable and expected dialogue. People do expect these answers, and people who are using another tool but still writing code, giving the answer that they should not follow best generic software developing practices just because they're using different tool. This is really strange for me. By definition, this is very, very, very strange, because effectively it's just a tool. Yes, in many cases, this tool is used for scratchbook experiments and something that will never reach production. But so do actually other tools. I have many Android projects that I have implemented during my life. I probably have more pet projects on Android than I have production projects, because, you know, I've used to work in YouTube, but YouTube is not something that you re-implementing YouTube from scratch often. Right, but pet project you're doing it often. So I do have more pet projects than I have a production project that I participated in. This is normal. Same with notebook. Only small chunks of notebook will be production notebook that will ever reach it. But again, the fact that you're using different tool doesn't mean that you should not use any best software dev practice. Now, version control in notebooks, for the sake of this particular talk, I'm just going to skip. It's irrelevant. You guys can just FYI, we do have a special tools that solves problem for different notebooks. Now, reproducible notebooks, that part that we care about. That is exactly what we're going to solve in some of our projects. Now, there are many problems with notebook being reproducible. First of all, notebook, they require specific environments. Like a notebook, you can use some libraries, and there is no notion inside notebook what are the dependency for particular notebook. Notebook can be executed in any particular order. So effectively, there could be a notebook that requires you to execute cell number 1, then cell number 3, then cell number 2. So there are many interesting things, but I want to attract your attention to one more problem. Let's say that you're prototyping a notebook, and at some point you have decided that now I need to start training on the GPU, right? You need to start paying actual money. Your source code is ready. So effectively, you need to attach GPU to your cloud instance and start training on the GPU because you think that your notebook is ready. Here, that is the time. That is the exact time. You now need to start actual training. So here is a quick example how attaching GPU looks like, and after example, we'll tell you what the potential problem with this. So we have notebook instance. We just need to stop it. The reason why I'm showing it not in live, first of all, I don't want to pay my personal money while I'm showing this. Second of all, there are some rewriting here. As soon as the instance is stopped, you can attach any GPU you want. This is fairly simple and quick, and then you can start instance again. That's it. So you have attached notebook. Now you can open your Jupyter Lab and start training on the GPU, paying your own money and actually producing the model with the quality that you want. Now, this particular process that I have shown you on the video in live taking like about 4 minutes. 4 minutes, one edit. Now, think about this. What if you have a bug? You start training a model, suddenly, boom, you have a bug in your training code. You don't want to pay for GPU, right? Therefore, in order to debug the problem, you probably do need to detach GPU. So you see where I'm going. Yes, if you have like 2 more bugs, we're speaking about 8 minutes. Yeah, 4 minutes is both editing, one attaching and detaching. So even 2 more bugs give you 8 minutes if you, after each of the bugs, you're thinking, okay, it's ready for execution. Let me try to execute it. Now, in ideal world with rainbow and pony. Oh, let me check the questions. Okay, no questions so far. Continuing. Let me see if anyone's still alive. Yes, people watching. Perfect. So in ideal world with rainbow and pony, you probably want something like this. Oh yeah, I forgot. I have to structure my own talk. Yeah, let's first answer what mean reproducibility is fairly simple. the notebooks that you're using do need to have embedded information about environment that you have used. So if I'm creating a notebook on this version of Deep Learning VM that has TensorFlow 113 with other particular libraries, my notebook do need to have this notion. This M20 is name of our environment. You can easily see this name of the environment if you look on your notebook. If you go to the compute engine with all your VMs, you will see that there is a VM that's running behind this notebook. If you're going to SSH to that particular VM, you will see a particular version of the environment that is used on that particular notebook. That version should be embedded in the notebook, so then if anyone using the same notebook, that person, she or he can automatically look on the version embedded in the notebook and recreate exactly the same environment. In this case, tf-gpu.113.m25. As you can see, we slightly redesigned versioning. Now it's slightly more complex. It's not just M25. It has a type of first is flavor, then version of the flavor, then version of the base image. Base image M25 define all other packages like version of NumPy, scikit-learn, yada yada that effectively install in it. 113 defined version of the flavor, and finally flavor. And these flavors TensorFlow GPU, as you can see. Okay, so this is the first thing that need to be embedded in the notebook in order for environment for the notebook to be reproducible. All dependencies should be installed by the notebook itself. This is not only always feasible, but in my experience, we already have tons of the dependency pre-installed in the environment. We check them between each other so they're not conflicting with each other. And usually, not always the case, but usually, you will need one or two packages on top of it, usually. And actually, no, you might need, usually you will not need even that. Everything, if you're just using TensorFlow with some basic software, very likely it's already there, very likely. Therefore, you don't need to install anything. Now, if you do need, usually it's several packages. If you do have several packages, you probably need to install them in the notebook itself. Then effectively notebook becomes fully self-contained. And obviously notebook should be executable from top to bottom. If your notebook has execution, like you first need to execute cell number 1, then 3, then 2, then there is no CI that capable to running this and know somehow order of execution. Now, we discussed the problem. Attaching GPU takes time. Notebooks not always self-contained. Now we discussed what is self-contained and now how this will help. So if you have a self-contained notebook, so let's say you have a notebook that has notion about the environment. Let me see, no questions. Okay, that has this notion about the environment embedded. How you can solve the first problem that we discussed, attaching GPU that takes time. Again, in the ideal life with Rainbow, Pony, you can do something like that. So let's say you're the user, you're using notebook instance, like this one, right? It would be nice to have ability to send your notebook to background training. This could be any entity. It could be deep learning VM, it could be AI platform job, it could be Kubeflow and Kubernetes, anything. But that background entity should has all the everything that is required for training your notebook. If you want to start using it with 1 GPU, sure, it should have 1 GPU or 4 GPU. Your main instance should remain cheap. Cheap CPU instance without anything. When you're ready, you're submitting for the training. What happens here, if you have a problem and you have a bug in your notebook, you are not actually required to edit your main instance. Your instance remains the same. You're just submitting the background job. Background job works only till after it's either fully finished or reaching the error, and then self-terminates itself. Now let's see an example. And this is example of the project that we're speaking about. This is like that particular part that we're going to touch. The project has name Nova. So we have a special script to enable this ability for background training that we just discussed. In order to enable this ability, you need to SSH to a VM, And here is one of the repositories that we're going to discuss today. You need to clone it. This repository has a special script that enables experimental functionality that we have discussed on the slide, background training. In order to enable it, you need to SSH on the VM that is used as a backend for your notebook. So you're creating a notebook, really simple CPU notebook. I already done this today for my new notebooks that I'm going to show to you. You just need to clone the repository and run only one simple script. I will scroll this. Script takes time, enable notebook submission. I'll scroll, it's just a simple script. But what happens after, as soon as you have enable script, if you have a notebook, like in this video, I'm just taking random TensorFlow example notebooks to show background training. Cloning this notebook, yada yada. Cloning completed. Opening notebooks. Now, what changed? So this button on top that is highlighted right now, this button appears only after you have installed special ability, experimental ability that we have discussed from that repository that I showed in the beginning. What this button is doing is when you click on it, it's asking you one thing. What are the resources, physical resources that you want for execution of this notebook? You're specifying shape of the VM, GPU that you might have, amount of the GPU, and finally submitting. That is it. What's happening now, it's actually going to execute this notebook in the background with the resources that you specified. You specify GPU, it will execute it on GPU, and will give you a result in the form of notebook where all the cells are post-populated. So in this particular and if you go to Compute Engine, you will see that at some point, let's scroll to that point, here is a VM. So this is exactly background VM that's going to execute your job. It has a GPU, it has everything that you have specified. Now, when VM got self-terminate, this means the job is finished. Now you can go back to your notebook instance and you will see job result folder with time of execution, and there you will have a notebook, and all this notebook has effectively all the cell populated. So this execution happened in the background with the GPU that you have populated, that you have requested. The good part here that you're paying only for execution. You no longer need attach deattach because you're effectively sending on the background. You can submit many jobs with different parameters. You can do many interesting things here, like for instance, continuous integration system based on the same thing. Now let's quickly discuss how everything works under the hood, and the first part will be finished, will be over. So what just happened, I showed you a notebook instance that has special Nova extension installed, experimental one. When I click that extension took my notebook with the configuration, created a backend deep learning VM that maps the configuration that I have requested, and uploaded the notebook to cloud storage. Then it also gave a backend deep learning VM a special script that effectively pulled the notebook from cloud storage and start executing it with a paper mill. Paper mill is amazing software from Netflix, which effectively allows you to execute your notebooks without any UI, exactly for scheduling notebooks. As soon as this finished, it uploads everything back on the cloud storage. Meanwhile, the main notebook is waiting special place in cloud storage to be populated with the result notebook. What this effectively allows, if you have a cloud storage in the middle, this means that you can stop your notebook instance if you don't want to pay for it, for instance, and if your training job takes days, why should you keep your notebook instance alive? You can stop it. The result will be persistent in cloud storage. So whenever after you will start your notebook instance again, it will just pull the result of your job. And the main part, as soon as training finish, the backend VM will self-terminate itself. So you're not paying for anything that you're not using, only for duration of the training. That's effectively it. And here is a quick link how to install Nova extensions. It's fairly simple. You can do continuous integration with this. This part we're not going to cover because as soon as you have ability to execute notebook as a background, you can easily to set up a continuous integration for the notebooks. We have a reference implementation of CI that you can go and see on the GitHub. Just a quick showcase. Notebook CI. So this is open sourced reference implementation with details of how everything works together. CI/CD that executing one notebook. We have a demo notebook, and effectively it executes tests this notebook. And okay, GitHub viewer takes time. Actually, that is not relevant. So if you go to the commits, if you see these markers are actually showing if the notebook executed correctly or not. So if you have a red marker, this means that the notebook by itself has a broken cell. If it's green, this means that notebook fully self-contained and can be executed top to bottom, cell executed one by one. This is pretty cool. Like it's almost like a functional test, but for notebooks, and yeah, it's just work. So you can go and check it and see how everything fit together. That is all. That is all. That is all from the presentation perspective. The rest of the presentation kind of irrelevant. Let me cross this item from my agenda list, and we can go. We can go to repository to show you how everything. Where is everything? We have this GitHub GCloudUniverse. This is a collection of repositories that effectively include. I'm sorry. That effectively include different projects that together unblocks this ability of executing notebook in the background. Also, I will start with this one. This is Jupyter Notebook Development Manifesto. This is exactly the principles that we've talked about. As you can see, there is not 6, already 7 of them. There will be one more, principle number 8, pretty soon. Merged here. If you want to just go read it, maybe you'll find something that need to be updated here. But this is just a high-level principles. Definitely put a start to it. Let me check if there is any question about what I've said. No, not so many questions. Let me again go and check if people here. Only 4 here, so we lost almost everyone. Okay, if you're still listening, let me know. Because if no one will be listening at some point, there is not too much reason to continue. Okay, out of all of these, apart from the manifesto, the next most important one is Notebook Executor. Notebook Executor is the special CLI that actually allow you to execute notebooks in the background. This is one of the most important repositories. It's fairly small because it's just a CLI, and it actually contains small amount of code. First thing is utils. Utils is effectively just the CLI to submit notebook for execution. Nothing more. It's literally just the CLI, command line interface. They're doing only one particular thing. It's uploading your notebook to Google Cloud storage. You can find at some point there is a code that's just using JS utils to upload your notebook to cloud storage. As soon as the upload happens, it creates the deep learning VM with the configuration that you're specifying as an input. So CLI, one of the CLI looks like this: execute notebook, input of the notebook, GCS location, GPU type, GPU count, zone, instance, and many other things. An example of the execution. So effectively it creates deep learning VM with that particular configuration, and also it sets a URL of the special script that need to be executed when VM is up. So that special script is actually in the charge of pulling the notebook that this CLI uploads on GCloud storage, executing it and submitting it back. And that particular script is here, Notebook Executor. So that is the Notebook Executor is the script that is downloaded to the backend VM. So that is where all the magic happens. This script effectively pulls the notebook from the Google Cloud storage, executes, and puts it back to Google Cloud storage. When the first CLI that I just shown to you creates the VM, it sets special metadata field from the VM, and that is how CLI that creates VM communicate to the VM from where you need to pull notebooks. And here, as you can see, this script that executed on the background VM reads the metadata, like input notebook, output notebook, parameters files, and actually executes everything. So this is how communication happens between CLI and the backend VM. So this is one of the most important part, and one of the first tasks that I actually do want to do is cover this with function test. We do have CI that relies on this particular piece of software, but CI relies on particular release tag. I think CI using 0.1.2, not the latest one, but there is nothing that can prove that master is not broken here. So it would be nice to actually upload a notebook here and execute this notebook with some continuous integration each time when the code updated, because this part is very, very important. We have many projects that relies on this part. Yes, the second task, particularly in this project, would be to describe what's going on here. Like to write an aggressive and understandable documentation for anyone who wants to change it or to figure out how everything works. There is an article how everything fits together, but that is Medium article. It's not the documentation, so it's kind of not enough. Even converting that article to official doc would be a nice starting point, but realistically, it would be nice to have really deep document describing what's going on here. Let me see. Okay, no one so far identified himself as alive. Only 3 people listening. Please do ping on the chat if you're there or not at all. We're almost finished, to be honest. Almost finished. Now, another 2 repositories that we care about is Nova Jupyter Lab extension. This repositories is actually a repository that shows this magic button that I showed you. So this magic button is effectively generated by this repository. This repository shows a pretty good description how install everything together, how install the button, and if you want to participate in the button part of the development, I would suggest to start with installing all this part. Also, this is the center repository where all the issues are. So here we're trying to track who's working on what, who assigned to what are the questions, what are the bugs need to be done before the next milestone. So here is to go place to pick up issues, to start asking the question. I would suggest to start with, if you want to start working on the UI part, there are 2 tasks that I would suggest to take. One is, they would be nice to put here a link that points to a doc that describes exactly what's going on after I'm going to press submit. So right now, just looking at this doesn't say much, so it's hard to understand what's going on, and yeah, it's pretty not user friendly, I would say. The second task, slightly more complicated, to implement ability to train locally, not just GC, but locally, so you can submit notebook for a local background training. The thing is that the Jupyter actually not supporting, does not support long-running jobs. You cannot run your notebook for like a week or 2 days or something like that. But people do need it. Sometimes your notebook is finished and you want to start executing it. You don't want to submit it to another entity. You want to train it here locally on your VM. Your VM is cheap, but your notebook doesn't require any powerful VM. Why not, right? But local mods is not implemented yet. That is another thing to think about. And now this particular repository shows that button and makes it functional. But the button, when you're pressing submit, this button going to create a special YAML file with request for your job. So the button by itself, when you're pressing submit, doesn't start the job. It's just creating a special request in the local file, local folder .jobs, special YAML file describing everything that user wants. Like here is a notebook that the user just used. Here is a requirement the user just put, shape of the instance, GPU, yada yada. So all the requirements for the job. And we do have a special service that is running on the VM that constantly reading that folder, and as soon as you see new job requests, it's actually dispatching the job. That particular part is here. So this is the UI part, and we do have Nova agents. That is the agent that's running in the background on the VM. We do need to move this repository and integrate it with the previous one. These parts need to be heavily redesigned, heavily refactored, and migrated to the previous repository. It doesn't make any sense to keep it separately, but yes, there are many things that need to be changed here. So if someone is familiar with Bash scripts and want to help with that particular part, even just writing in something more friendly, even Python or anything that is more friendly for services would be really nice. Because even to read what's going on there, it's hard. I can connect with the person who actually one of the main authors of this particular part. Now, guys, you have a pretty good knowledge of what is what here. We have discussed manifesto, we have discussed executor, we have discussed extensions, we have discussed Nova engines. Everything else is fairly new. As you can see, there is not much development going on in other repositories, so I'm not going to cover them. This is all. This is repositories. This is a problem. This is a task that you might start. Just to recap, link for what plugin is doing on the UI, documentation for GCP Executor, documenting everything that we just discussed today somewhere, functional tests for GCP Executor, rewriting Nova agent to something more suitable for the background job. That's it. Here is the repos, here is the task, and you can always ping me directly. I will definitely provide a help to you. Yes, this is it. Let me see. Okay, I have only one request to create the same content on Russian. Sure, we might have another call for the same exact topic on Russian. Yeah. Yes. I will probably do so. That's all. I will wait for several more minutes for any particular questions, for any particular comments. Let me see how many people online. 4, okay. Any particular questions and comments, and if there is nothing, we will finish on this. Yeah, we will just finish. I wanted to say something else, but I forgot. Anyway, yes. But to recap, yes, I will do similar content on Russian. That is a good idea, because indeed there are too much of the information on the similar topic in English already. Would be nice to create a Russian one. Okay, thank you everyone for staying late if you are in one part of the universe, or being here in the middle of Saturday if you're in another part of the universe. I wish you all the best, and feel free to ping me in Twitter or anywhere you want if you have any further questions. Goodbye, bye. Now I need to figure out how to stop everything. I think it's stage 10. I think. Yes. Let me double check chat one more last time. And okay, no questions, no comments. Goodbye, everyone.